It's the season of endings and new beginnings as the school year comes to a close. Can't believe we're talking about it. Honestly, it snuck up on us as it always does. And as exciting as it is, it's often the season of regret for parents. We send our kids off to this next phase in their life, and we sit back and worry we didn't do enough during the last one. My next guest says it's time to address the regrets before they put dark clouds over the excitement that graduation season brings. Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson joining me with ways to mitigate milestone regret.
Yes.
Just in time. Thanks for jumping in. Milestone regret. I love that we're naming it. And you say you see this, you've experienced this, it's a thing.
It is a thing. And you know, we tend to think it's when a child graduates and then they're gonna leave our home, right? And high school's over. But think about it for a second. We feel these things when a child is done with half-day kindergarten and next year they're gonna be gone full day from us, right? We feel it when a sixth grader is transitioning into junior high. I mean, we really do feel this. We feel this when a child starts college and we realize that they're not going to be with us all the time anymore, and that once they do, they might never come back, right? We feel these things. So we want to understand a few things about regret. One of the things we want to understand is that when we look at regret, parenting regrets always show up in the top 5 regrets that people have.
You know what? I was thinking about this because early on, way back in the early days of Studio 5, Dr. Liz Hale did a segment, a topic on regret. And it's one of those things that I don't remember exactly what she says, but I remember how she left us feeling, which was regret's just part of life, like very kind of bold and upfront, let's get used to it. But something about parental regret feels especially hurtful.
It does. It feels very heavy because these relationships mean so much.
Yes.
They mean so much. So when we look at it, that's the first thing we want to take from this is this same message that she shared, which is because it's so common, we got to know this is a part of life. It is a part of life, and so it's okay to feel it.
It's a human emotion.
It is. What we do want to do today, though, is realize that when we feel it, we want to do something productive with it, right? We want to be very productive with it. The other thing we know about regrets is that we feel a lot more regret about the things that we never do or don't try, opposed to the things that we do try that go poorly. And that's another really cool thing to remember as parents, right? We're going to feel more of that regret about the things that we didn't ever go for, that we didn't spend the time on, that we didn't stay up for, that we didn't attempt. That is harder for us to navigate than when we try something and it goes south, right? So if you're looking at something simple like a family vacation, we're going to feel more uncomfortable about the ones we didn't attempt taking with our kids, opposed to the ones that we took where they fought in the back seat the whole time. Right? Which it's just comforting to realize we're in those positions.
Checking the box does something, right? Even if it isn't a magical vacation or the, utmost experience you hoped it would be, checking the box matters.
It does, and we can do a lot more when we check the box, meaning our minds can mitigate that a lot easier or better when it comes to regrets.
Good.
So we want to jump into what do we do when they show up, right? Like I said, it isn't that we won't feel them. It would be pretty strange if you had a child graduating from high school and you didn't think through the 18 years they'd been in your home.
Yeah.
That would be kind of foreign. So we want to start by understanding where this emotion is coming from in the first place. It is coming from an intense care and desire to do our most important relationships really good. To do good things with what matters the most. And so naturally we're going to look at them. If we can understand it that way and go, well, wait a second, why would I not consider this relationship? I care about these kids so much. Of course, I'm going to hope that I did things in really, really good ways. So we want to understand when you feel regret, it means you're most likely thinking through a relationship that means a ton to you.
So once we acknowledge the why of regret, how do we, step forward to this place of acceptance? Like, I accept the feeling, I accept the effort
that I've already given, right? We're going to actually accept that at any given moment, we've given the best that we had. Now, there's a lot of pushback. I can already hear it, right?
I feel
that says, no, I could have done more, or I could have done better, or I should have done more. But the sooner as parents, or even as individuals, we can come to a place where we realize that given our own limitations and our own inabilities and our own capacity to use tools and how we were raised, all those things come together, we actually do give our kids the best we've got in any given moment. Now, it might not be the best. We're not saying that it's the best. But whether it's impatient or patient, that's actually the best we had in that moment.
And it's not a cop-out. It's not just to pacify the pain of the emotion.
It's a recognition that we're always trying and we can grow, right? If we go the other direction and beat ourselves up that I didn't do enough and I should have and I this, we actually paralyze ourselves. There can't be any growth in that. But if we're willing to look at it and say, you know, it might not have been the best, but it's what I had on that night. That opens our mind to say, what can I now do the next night so that it improves?
Which you say leads to this idea, this opportunity to reframe the situation.
We can reframe. And that would be some reframing. The biggest reframing we want to do with regrets is we want to realize that we wouldn't be who we are right now if it weren't for all those choices that we'd made parenting them in the past. Those choices have contributed to who I am right here today. In fact, even just that concept, I heard my husband talking to our son. He's gone right now. He's got about a year left of being gone from us for 2 years. And they were talking on the phone, and I heard him say, you know, I'm sorry, bud, because I realize that the dad I'm able to be to your sisters now, I have so much more wisdom, right? We've been parenting for 20 years. And so as we look at an 8 and a 6-year-old compared to a 20-year-old, you know, as they're laughing and reminiscing, you know, he said, I know so much more now.
Of course.
And reframing that who he is now is a byproduct and a result of 20 years of making choices. That reframing helps us continue to be productive when we feel as though there's something we could have changed.
And it's that time-old reminder of, look how easy it was to throw compassion towards your husband in that moment. Of course. So we need to turn that to ourselves.
And accept that, right? Accept and acknowledge that. We also want to take a step back and look at the lessons that we've learned. We want to recognize that there's a great deal of lessons that we've learned as a result of this. You know, we tend to think that parenting is for our kids, and it is. The parents that we are is very much for them. But it is not very often that we take a step back and remind ourselves that parenting is for our growth also. That while we're contributing and giving and loving and serving to them and helping them develop, it develops us too. And who I am today is a far more developed parent than I was 20 years ago. And I think we could all say that. We could all say that there's been growth. But those lessons learned, we gotta look backwards and go, okay, this is for me too. My edges aren't nearly as rough, and my capacity is far greater, and my understanding is so much deeper. Those are lessons we've learned.
We can feel proud of that refinement.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's hard because when we're looking at lessons, sometimes we, instead of looking at them, we start to dwell on the mistakes. And anytime we dwell on mistakes, we're going to find ourselves in a pretty uncomfortable place. And the reason is, dwelling on mistakes, you know, I see this like putting a little teeny action figure in a lot of water or using a microscope is another good example. You know, when you put something under a microscope, it distorts the reality of what you're looking at. It also makes it out to be much bigger than it actually is. And when it comes to these regrets, the should have, could have, I wish I would have, when we put those mistakes under a microscope, which is what we're doing when we dwell on them, man, do they become distorted, and they become so much bigger than they probably were.
It's literally that printed reminder on our rear view mirror. Objects in the mirror are larger than they appear.
It's exactly the same thing. And so then we start putting our energy into something that's very distorted. We put our energy into something that's much bigger than it was or even needs to be now.
All this to say, you want us to be present right now with the parent we are, with the child we've raised, to, you know, to whatever point. Just be in the moment.
To be present and to be in the moment. And here's what regrets do. They actually hinder our ability to enjoy right now. Now, again, those milestones, we've all been through some of them. It might even just be a child who no longer is in newborn clothes because now they're wearing 3 to 6 months, right? These are all milestones that elicit this thought process in us. When we're present, we actually get to experience what's happening and enjoy where our children are heading. We look for the ways they've grown and we've grown, and we can add it or be productive about the future. When we regret, we actually miss out. When your mind is so focused on what didn't or what you might have done differently in the past, you don't enjoy graduation, and you're not present when you're moving them into college, and you're not there when they come home after a full day of school because you're so busy giving energy to something that's no longer productive. Regrets will show up, but it's so important that we feel them and see them and then decide to be productive with them. To be productive with them.
Less regret, more productivity, more being present in the moment. Heather, thanks for this reminder, nice and early as we set into what is milestone season in our homes and families. Heather coaches and counsels families and individuals. You can find her information on our website. Thanks again.